I want to welcome you to the show today. I'm so very excited that you're here. Thank you guys so much for joining us. This is the author's edition. That means that we have an amazing author on the show with an amazing story on how she got to, write a book. I mean, literally speaking, it's like, okay, look, okay, there are certain events and happenings that happen to make you go, I have to write this book. I cannot live without writing this book. And Hadassah is one of those people that she had some really cool things happen. And I want to go ahead and I'm so excited that she's going to join us today. Welcome to the show, Hadassah. Thank you so much.
It's good to be here. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, thank you. So, what are the circumstances that led to you writing? Will the real Satan please stand up? Because I mean, I want to know.
I wanted to understand scripture and I wanted to understand truth. I didn't want anything but truth.
Mm-hmm.
And I was very unhappy with the church I grew up in, which was the Holiness Church. And so I started traveling from church to church, from denomination to denomination, trying to understand what actually was taught and how does it harmonize with the Bible. I didn't like the fact that a lot of it was based on emotionalism, the gyrations of the preacher. I wanted to understand knowledge. Who was God? I didn't want to worship a little God in a box. I wanted to worship the universal sovereign who created this marvelous universe. And all I was getting in church was a lot of emotionalism, you know, but there was very little, to me anyway, intellectualism. And that's what I craved. And
Mm,
so I started searching for other avenues to understand God in this vast universe.
hmm. Yeah, I understand where you're coming from. Because I mean, I don't want to be put in a box. There's so much more to me, and I'm not even God that people don't know. That only you know, and only the people that are super close to you understand.
Yes.
But even they don't understand everything. Um, and so I totally get it. So how did you find your way? What was it that really captured your heart?
When my brother started talking to me about Jehovah's Witnesses, because by that time I had gone through several years of going from experiencing churches. I even joined his First Assembly of God Church once I left the Baptist Church, and then I went to I think it's the Unitarian Universalist Church, yes,
Mhm.
and several other churches. My brother, when he came back from Vietnam, he brought back his wife that he met in Korea. And so I started even attending Catholic services with her. And I said, no, this is not going to work because there's too many idols. And I know the Bible says, do not
Yeah.
praise, worship idols.
Yeah.
So that
Yeah.
didn't work. So I just kind of laid low for a while and didn't do anything, but I still had that inner yearning to know and understand God.
Mhm.
And that is what led me to Jehovah's Witnesses, because now I was getting fed intellectually, not just emotionally.
Right.
Because to me, I said emotions is like Chinese food. It tastes good when you're getting it, but it wears off.
That monosodium glutamate gets you really good, don't it? Makes you want more. It's like leaves you hungry.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I understand it.
And
Definitely.
Jehovah's
Definitely.
Witnesses usually refer to their religion as the truth. And
Mm,
so I thought that here I'm finally going to get some truth.
mhm,
But the longer I stayed into it, I ended up spending 17 years in that religion.
mhm.
And there were some, I still had questions that I came to understand. You can't ask questions in Jehovah's Witnesses. You go according to what the governing body who runs the religion has to say, and you don't ask too many questions. And I didn't like that because I want to understand, and the only way to understand is to ask questions.
Yeah.
So we kind of parted ways. They called themselves disfellowshipping me because I wasn't satisfied, and I disputed some of the things that they had talked about.
Mhm.
And I came to look into who this God of the Bible was all about. And it kind of discouraged me because in the Hebrew scriptures, this God comes across like a brute. He's so different from the God of the New Testament, which was Jesus.
Mhm.
And so that's what led me to, when I went through some experiences among the Jehovah's Witnesses, it led me to want to understand more.
Mm. And so, in understanding more, going through all of that, going through this whole experience, this book came to play. How is this book? How would I say this? Because I understand where you're at, and I understand what you want, because I'm at that same place.
Hmm.
There's really, and I've come to understand that there is really no way to describe the creator of all except to say
Absolutely.
that
Absolutely.
the creator of all. That's it. I can't put a gender on the creator of all because I don't remember meeting. I have to say it that way. The creator of all.
And that was one thing that discouraged me about the Bible itself, because it's very patriarchal.
Hmm.
Women are not really given much credence in the Bible, and I didn't like that. So I just tried to really understand where it was coming from. And the God of the Bible itself was kind of strange for me to understand, because we talk about a God of love, a God of mercy, a God of understanding and long suffering, but when you read the Hebrew scriptures for understanding, you don't get that feeling or that sense. And that came across strongly in Jehovah's Witnesses, because everything was male dominated.
Hmm.
Women didn't have no part in the say of the organization, or you really just didn't have no part. It's almost like you didn't exist except for going out from door to door and pushing literature, which I came to understand the organization as nothing more than a real estate company and a book publisher.
Wow.
So, and I was kind of discouraged with that.
Hmm.
And making the comparison between, I said, it's funny how this God of the Old Testament is so dogmatic, and he comes across, I mean, he says, thou shalt not kill, but yet there's so much killing in the Hebrew scriptures. And there's one particular scripture that really made me start thinking of things, was where Jehovah says, after you've done all that you can do in my service, say to yourself, I'm a good for nothing slave. What I have done is only what I ought to have done. And I've got that in the book. And I said, for God to refer to me as a good for nothing slave when I've spent my whole life in his service, I don't like that. He
Yeah.
referred to his worshipers as slaves, but in the New Testament, Jesus said, I don't refer to you as slaves. He said, I call you friends. He said, because a slave doesn't know what his master does. And that's why I refer to you as friends.
Yeah.
And I like that.
Yeah.
And it caused me to start looking into a lot of the background, which is what I should have did in the first place, to look into the background of what the religion has to say and what it's all about.
Yeah. Yeah. You
And
know,
I found
I
some
tell
things I
people
did not like.
definitely. And you know what? You are saying, I mean, you are saying exactly what I've been saying for years. I'm not, and this is so wonderful to actually meet someone. And I've only met a few people
Hmm.
that are really searching for the truth, searching for the real creator, if I could say that. I know that there's a creator. This is not possible without a creator. This is just not, I mean, I would be an idiot to say, at least for me in my brain, that there is no creator when all that I see around me is a creation.
Absolutely.
And without any of this being already here created, we couldn't create anything. So,
Absolutely.
so that to me speaks volumes.
But a
But
lot of, a lot of what's in the Old Testament, it's my belief that this is what causes a lot of people to become atheists, unfortunately,
yeah,
because they see the ogre of the Old Testament and the killing and the sending people, his people, into nations to kill. Okay, he says, I'm the God of Israel. But if you created the whole of mankind, why are you only the God of Israel? And so I had to look into that. And so, because of this God of the Old Testament being such an ogre, many people have chosen to become atheists. I said, well, I can't go that route because I know there's a God.
right.
And I know when I look at it's like David in the book of Psalms. David said, when I see your heavens and the work of your fingers and mankind that you have created, he said, what am I that you should even take knowledge of me? God is total love, not this Old Testament God says, I'm a jealous God. I don't want to share your worship with nobody. He's very ogre and very self-possessive, but he
Yeah.
doesn't appear to appreciate the servants when you can refer to them as good for nothing slaves.
Mm.
And I talk about that in the book, and I break down what a good for nothing slave is. I said, now for a God of love to refer to you in that way when you devote your whole entire life, because especially in the congregation of Jehovah's Witnesses, you're made to feel that your whole life, your mind, everything belongs to Jehovah. Everything you do has got to be about Jehovah. You got to spend so much time out in the ministry. You got to give over so much of yourself, but still be referred to as a good for nothing slave. And so to me, when I compare the two, when I compare Satan and I compare Jehovah, I said, okay, who is the real Satan here?
Mm. Mm. Mm.
Because Satan, the Jehovah in the Bible is the one doing all the killing.
Yeah.
So who is the real Satan? And then I hear people, ministers say, they say, well, we have to avoid Satan because he lied on God in the Garden of Eden. He told Eve that she would not die. Remember, God said, the day you eat of that fruit. Now, the fruit is knowledge. If you created these two beings, Adam and Eve, as mature adults, they had no childhood according to the Bible.
Right.
Why would you deny the tree of knowledge for them to learn about their environment, that you put them into this new environment?
Mm.
So they said, well, God said that we shouldn't touch that fruit. And Satan said, well, the biblical representative of Satan says, well, God is lying to you, that he knows that the day you eat of that fruit, your eyes will be open and you're bound to become like God. Okay, so I hear preachers preaching all the time, well, Satan lied on God, and so we got to avoid it. But he did not lie, and he is really not Satan. What people don't understand is that Jehovah in ancient Samaria was called Enlil. And Enlil is the brother. People say, well, what happened to, why didn't God destroy the devil? Because the devil was his brother. Enlil is Jehovah. They're one and the same. And Anu is the father of both of them. Jehovah and Enki is his name. Enki was our true creator. It was not Jehovah God, but Jehovah took the credit. And then he said, I will put enmity between you and the woman, between your seed and her seed. And that's the way it went down in history. Jehovah decreed that we should hate his brother, and he went down in the history of the Bible as Satan the devil. And that's sad because he was our true creator, along with his sister, which was called Ninharsag. And Ninharsag had a laboratory in Southeast Africa. And that is where they formed human beings, Homo sapiens sapiens. And it was not Jehovah, but Jehovah took the credit. So I said, well, if Jehovah, why did he create the devil? He did not create the devil. That was his brother. And he had no authority from his father to kill his brother. And that's why Enki told Eve, he said, my brother is lying to you, Eve, because he knows that the day you eat of that fruit, your eyes are going to be open and you're bound to be like the gods, knowing good and evil. Why would he only want them to know good and not that evil also existed in the cosmos? And so people say, well, he lied on God. But when God went back to the council after that, and what did he tell the other council of the gods? He said, now the humans have become like us, knowing good and evil. So did Satan lie? No, he told the truth. So he said, now that they know the truth, we got to get them out of that garden before they eat of that tree of life and live forever, knowing that we lied to them. And this is why I say, well, the real Satan, please stand up and announce yourself that you are the real Satan. You're the one in the Bible causing all the evil. And that's gone down in history, even with what's happening today among Israel and Palestine. Israel is following the dictates of their God, which Jehovah throughout the Bible claimed Israel as his sole possession. And they're imitating that God.
Mm. 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 Mm.
So my appeal to that God is, will the real Satan stand up and show yourself?
Oh my gosh. Hadasha, you done opened up a can of worms. girlfriend, you didn't open up the worms. You didn't open up all the cans that existed. You just opened all at once. You must have had lots of help because you opened them all at once.
You know who I had help from?
Oh,
The Universal Sovereign. I listened to a tape one time by Mark Passio on YouTube.
mm,
And that's the first time I came to realize, listening to his tape, that there is a God higher than Jehovah.
mm,
And Jehovah, first of all, people say we worship God as a spirit. God is a spirit. Enlil is not a spirit. That picture you see on the cover of my book is Enlil. That is Jehovah. He is not a spirit. He's a full-blooded semi-human being. And
mm.
so he masks himself as a spirit so that people will not know the difference between him and the true God. And that's why on the back of the book, can I just read you something?
Oh, please do. Please.
On the
I
back of
love it.
my book, it says, "It is written in the annals of prehistory of a great one ousted from the pleroma, which is the matrix of the primal gods. He was kicked out of heaven and driven earthward, down through Earth's terrestrial biosphere, as though as through a glass ceiling separating heaven from the earth. Who is this great one who crashed through our terrestrial ceiling, coming down like lightning to our earthly abode? Could it be the satanic being who is humanity's real enemy, spoken of in Isaiah 14:12 through 15. And that verse says, "How you are fallen from heaven, O Lucifer, son of the morning. How you are cut down to the ground, mighty though you were against the nations of the world. For you said to yourself, I will ascend to heaven and rule the angels," which is the archons. "I will take the highest throne. I will preside on the mount of assembly far away in the north. I will climb to the highest heavens and be like the Most High," which is the actual creator of the cosmos. But God says, but instead you will be brought down to the pit of hell, to its lowest depth. And then I said, although this scripture was originally applied to the biblical Satan the devil, which is Jehovah's brother, I beg to differ. That intent was deliberately coined for the purpose of throwing us off track as to the truth of who our real enemy is, so that he could continue throughout history posing as an angel of light to humanity as their true God. The above text, however, as exemplified throughout the Old Testament, more appropriately fits the character, the actions, the demeanor, and the anger of Lord Enlil, which is the same as Jehovah. He is actually the half brother of Enki, the one he calls Satan the devil. He is ferocious and filled with hatred and arrogance towards humanity and narcissism, self absorption, and he's one who was formerly sent into exile for viciously raping a young medical student. This is who Enlil is. And so the scripture says, "Be careful. Watch out for attacks from Satan, your great enemy. He prowls around like a hungry lion, looking for some victim to tear apart. Stand firm when he attacks." And it said, "The information recorded within this book will shock many to their senses because it goes directly against the grain of what we were systematically indoctrinated with by our religious institutions."
Girl. Mm, mm, mm. You
So
know,
this people say, well,
uh,
why couldn't he just destroy the devil? He had no right to destroy the devil. Their father Anu was the father of both of them, Satan the devil and God, as they say, but really it's Enlil and Enki. So, in fact, Enki was his older brother. Jehovah was the younger.
my goodness. That's kind of like a Cain and Abel kind of thing, isn't it?
Yeah,
But they went the
similar.
different direction. They didn't kill each other.
Right.
Um, I truly believe that there is, how would I say? I can't put a name to the creator only because I don't understand as far as you do. Um, but what I can say is, yeah, I totally agree with you on 100% of what you said, of how people are feeling like, why would a creator kill its creation like that in
And
droves?
because he says, thou shalt not kill. But yet
Right.
he's killing I mean, even look at what he did. Okay, give me a that. I really brought it out in a book about the story of Job. I
Hmm.
said, now, supposedly Satan comes to Jehovah and say, well, he's jealous. Jehovah, Satan is, Job is worshiping you. And then instead of, God admitted that Job was loyal to him, faithful to him, no matter what, Job stayed faithful to God. But yet you're going to give who's supposed to be your enemy, Satan, the right and the authority to go and wreck Job's life.
Yeah.
You killed all his family at Jehovah's insistence. Do whatever you want to do to him, just don't take his life. Okay, but then in the end, he afflicts him with all these boils and sores. And Job is sitting out among the ashes, scratching himself and scraping. And his wife got so frustrated, in fact, that she said, why don't you just curse God and die? And I hear a lot of people say, well, she should not have said that. But when you see your whole family fall apart and all your everything you have, the cattle, everything was destroyed by Jehovah's insistence. And then you see now, well, the Satan is supposed to come back and say, well, he's still loyal to you. Can you do this? Okay, so Jehovah gives him permission, wipe out his whole family. I bet you he'll still worship me. Why would a loving God do that, especially to one he said is so loyal to him?
Yeah.
Because his reputation was more important than Job's life.
Mm.
And then in the end, when Job still was loyal, he said, okay, Satan says, let me do something worse. We'll kill all his children. And that's what Jehovah commissioned him to do, just so he can show that he was still going to be loyal. And there's so many examples of that in the Bible. And so I say, okay, who is the real Satan here? The one who says, thou shalt not kill, but yet slaughters so many people. And then he tells the men, go in there and destroy these cities, but keep the women for yourselves, the women
Ha!
and the little girls. And this is one of the reasons I think why Jehovah's Witnesses have so much trouble with child molestation cases. And they just got fined again by the Royal Commission for their sexual abuse of children. And it's constantly, and they say, well, you can't lay that to Jehovah's account. Because yes, I can. Because what happened when David gave the census that Jehovah asked him to do, to count these people going to war? And when he did it, then Jehovah still got mad. And what did he do? He kills David's 8-year-old baby. And David grieved for so long. In fact, he could not even be comforted, because Jehovah, instead of dealing with David for what he did, if he wrongly counted the census or what, instead of dealing with him, and even David says that, why kill my 8-year-old baby that was innocent?
Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
just so many examples in this book of what an ogre and a real Satan that people are worshiping unbeknownst to themselves. And that's all Jehovah wants. He wants worship, worship that he truly is not entitled to. If
Mm.
anybody's entitled to worship, it is the one, his brother, whom he called Satan the devil, because his brother is the one that created Homo sapiens, with the help of the Almighty God that is above Jehovah.
Wow. I mean, okay, so what the curiosity is getting me right now. How did you find this out? What led you to believe not only that, there is something other than what is being explained, but believing in the names, the Samaritan names? How did you come about that?
I can read something to you.
Mm.
It says this complete study came about because I needed to understand why 17 years of my life were placed on hold, why I was consistently lied to, and I needed to know the truth of why, simply because I, like so many before and after me, had an innate desire to know, to love, and serve my Creator who gave me life, of which I was falsely led to believe was Jehovah. Why I was permitted to be purposely blinded and deceived when my heart and intentions were in the right place and my desire to know was genuine. I needed to understand why it was necessary for my young life, because I went into Jehovah's Witnesses when I was only 22 years old.
Mm.
I'm about to turn in a few days 74.
Wow. Oh, you look
So
amazing.
Thank you. I needed to understand why it was necessary for my young life, my formative years, to be absolutely turned upside down, downside up, and inside out, and my mental health damaged for a time because I ended up going, based on this religion, into a psychiatric center where
Oh,
I spent 4 weeks, almost 5 weeks, and I lost my mind. I didn't know who I was. I started taking, they were feeding me psychotropic drugs, and I prayed. I said, I became like my personality split, and I became three people. One of which was the name Crystal Lee. And I said, Crystal is trying to destroy me. I need to get out of here. I appealed to the congregation of Jehovah's Witnesses. They said, no, we just fellowship you because you don't go along with what we teach. And so they said to let her rot there in the psychiatric center. The only one who came to my, and I was out in Phoenix, I was in Arizona. I was 2,700 miles away from my biological family in New York. And they knew that I had no family in Arizona. I went to Arizona because of the respiratory distress I was suffering. Because the doctor told me if you don't get to a hot, dry climate, you're not going to make it.
mm,
And that's how I got there. And because of a disagreement, they turned their backs on me, and I wound up living on the streets for 4 or 5, almost 5 weeks. I was eating out of garbage cans. I can't start to tell the story because I'll start to cry. I try not to remember it, but it's chapter 8 in the book. It's all about my life on the street and almost getting raped. And I took glass from the alleyway where I was living between a Circle K restaurant store and a another building. That's where I started living, um, between in the alleyway. And I just it was a nightmare. I took some glass from the alleyway and tried to slit my wrist. I tried to take my life and it just didn't work. And I didn't know how I got to the psychiatric center, but when somebody told me that when they went out to put trash in the garbage behind the store, that's when they found me. I had passed out from the blood when I slit my wrist.
mm,
And they called the ambulance and got me to a hospital. And that's how I ended up in the psychiatric center.
my
Um,
goodness.
and nobody from the Kingdom Hall, none of Jehovah's Witnesses would have anything to do with me. They said, no, Jehovah doesn't want us to, he wants you to learn your lesson the hard way, and unless you come back to him. That was not going to happen. I said, a loving, compassionate God, which is all expansive, not this little God who has a penchant for evil or for punishing people. And that's how even the church come up with the idea about hellfire. Why would a loving God burn people? First of all, the Bible says you were born in sin and shaped in iniquity. So if you were born that way, why would he burn you? That's the worst manner of death you can do to a person. And we're talking about a God that will burn you forever. So even if you're burning forever, he, being all expansive, has to be aware of you burning. How
Mm-hmm.
could he be happy and you got people burning and he's aware of it because he's supposed to be aware of everything, but burning for all eternity, not because they killed anybody, not because they committed heinous crimes, but simply because he says they're imperfect. And
I
there's this,
think it's because of that aroma thing.
yes.
I think it's that aroma thing. I truly appreciate you being on the show because this year, let me ask you the biggest question that's on my mind right now.
Mhm.
The
Okay.
biggest question on my mind is when you realized what you now know, how has your life been?
Awesome. Because let me tell you, I when I was a Jehovah Witness, they were very discouraging about going to college or going to higher education because they wanted to keep you as serfs. And so because I did not go to college, I listened to them, I followed their rules, and it didn't do me any good because now I'm not able to get a, well, I did work for a long time. I worked 24 years in law enforcement. So I did do that. In fact, I was doing that before I became a witness. I spent 24 years in law enforcement. But I was depressed a lot because when I went into the organization, I was engaged to be married. And I was told by the woman that studied with me for Jehovah's Witnesses, you can't marry him because the Bible says, do not become unevenly yoked with unbelievers. He's not a Jehovah's Witness, so you can't marry him. So I said, okay, I can't marry him. A particular job that I wanted to do, oh, Jehovah says you can't do that because you have, oh, working in a hospital because you have to deal with blood. And Jehovah says, don't touch blood. Every job I wanted to work, I could not do because of some thing Jehovah didn't like. But anyway, and I became very depressed with that because I love to work. I'm a workaholic.
Mm-hmm.
But when I left the organization, in fact, just recently, well, when I turned 64, I went back to college and I got my 4-year bachelor's degree in metaphysical sciences. And that was, I was determined I was going to get an education now that I left the organization. And that's what I do. I got my degree right here on my wall now.
Oh,
So, and then I went to work in that field, working with, the metaphysical sciences. And that helped me too in my research and study because one of the things we studied at the university was world religions and why they do and how they do what they do. And we went through, when that for those 4 years, we went through all the different religions in the world, and they're mostly about control.
yeah. Yeah. And so, what do you call yourself?
I don't really call myself anything. I don't call myself Christian because they sully that word so bad. You look at the Christian right here now in politics, and look at what they're doing. You look at the churches and the hypocrisy, and the exploitation. So I don't regard myself. I call myself just a believer in the Almighty, the universal sovereign. In fact, my niece, she says, well, what do you refer to God as? I said, he's the universal sovereign. I said, it's the universal sovereign because this God, this deity has no gender. He even has no name. And one of the things, if you read the book of Thomas, which conveniently was left out of the Bible, you will find out that that is not the case. Even in the book when they say Judas betrayed Jesus, but when you read the book of Judas, Jesus asked him to do what he did because he wanted to be released from this world. He said, "This world belongs to the darkness that my brother created." He came here for a certain assignment, but he wanted to leave that assignment. Like he said in John 17, he said, "Father, I want to leave this world and come back to you." Because he said this world under Jehovah's reign was evil, was dark, was, I don't know, but he asked Judas to betray him, to do what he did, so that he could be released from that body of flesh. Because if you read in Hebrews, in the book of Hebrews, he says, let me just read a little bit to you. Hebrews 2 says, we see Jesus, who was for a little while made lower than the angels. Since the children, as he calls them, are people of flesh and blood, Jesus himself became like them and shared their human nature. This means that he had to become human like his brothers in every way in order to be able to understand what they go through in the world. So that is the reason Jesus, like he says, he says, Father, you created a body for me in order for him to come into our terrestrial sphere and live as a human. But that Father he was talking about was not Jehovah God. It was the creator of this grand cosmos, who is too expansive to be seen as a little God in a box or one that say, I'm jealous and I don't want you to worship. God is not that petty. He's not that narrow-minded. This is a God of pure love, and everything in the universe reflects this God, this deity, not the God of the Old Testament, who is a brute and loves punishment.
Mm. Mm. You really, whoa, you done it. You did it, Hadassah, you did it. But you know what? People need to hear it. People need
and
to
that
hear that.
and that is why I wrote, because of my experience, and I'm seeing now on YouTube, a lot of YouTube videos, a lot of people speaking of their experiences in that organization, how their children has been molested, how that you can't ask questions, you can't do this, and so many people. There are even some that committed suicide when they came out. They said, I gave my whole life to this organization. Because with Jehovah's Witnesses, you can't go to college. You can only work certain jobs. I mean, they dictate your whole entire life. And so that's why I started going back in my mind, because I had put it out of my mind what had happened to me in the streets of Arizona, because it was so hot. We would get up to 140 degrees, and here I am living on in a alleyway between 7-Eleven store and another store, and sleeping on the ground. I had a Chevy Blazer, which I had drove to from New York to Arizona, 3.5 day trip to get there from New York. And then finally, when I lost my job, because everything I did, Jehovah's Witnesses did not approve of, I ended up losing job after job. So I lost my apartment, and then I lost my vehicle. It was repossessed, and that's how I came to be living on the street.
Mm.
And I said, I don't want anybody to go through what I'm going through. And I see so many people online saying what they experience, and how they separate you from your families, because once you leave the organization, all of a sudden you can, if you got family, like my brother. I love my brother. I used to pretend we were twins, because my birthday is April 11th. His is April 17th. So for 1 week, we are both the same age. Right now, he's 74, and I'm about to turn 74 in a couple of weeks. So we used to always pretend we were twins, and that's why I ended up following him, for one thing, into the religion. But now, when they wanted me out of the religion because I asked too many questions, and then they tried to say that, oh, she defiled Jehovah's laws or whatever. So my brother has not been able to speak to me in 38 years. He's still a Jehovah Witness. He's been in there now 50 years. And he has not spoken to me since he agreed to drive with me to Arizona because I was so sick. But once we got to Arizona, he got on a plane and flew back to New York. And he has not spoken to me since. So 38 years. He said, because Jehovah don't want me to have nothing to do with you. You're disfellowship. You're kicked out of the organization, and I have to obey Jehovah. This is what Jehovah does. This is what the organization does. It destroys religions. It and this is what moved me to write. I said, something was just pressuring me. You got to write this book. You got to tell your story. You got to tell what happened to you in Phoenix, Arizona. The only one that would help me in Phoenix was a girl that I was studying the Bible with to become a Jehovah Witness. And she talked to the congregation. She said, why did you put her out in the street? They said, well, she's not worthy anymore to study the Bible with you, so we can assign somebody else. She said, the way you treat this sister, and she's all the way here from New York with no family, and you think I still want to become a witness? So she didn't. She came to the psychiatric center pretending to be my sister. That's how I got freed from that place, because I started hiding the medications under the mattress so that I can get my mind back. But that's how I got. And then when I wanted to go back, once I got straight back in New York, I wanted to send for her because she was going through a lot of abuse with her husband at the time. And her husband kicked her out, and she had two little twin girls. And so I said, I want you to come to New York and stay with me since you helped me get out of that psychiatric center. And so by the time I started making arrangements to go get her, they killed her husband. She was dead. And I couldn't even, but she freed me from that psychiatric center. I don't want to start crying here, but.
I'm so sorry.
And then the witnesses wanted to continue studying with her. She said, after what you did to this sister, you think I want us to continue being a Jehovah Witness? She said, I don't think so. But
Hmm. Wow. Well, I have been putting the QR code for this book in the corner. And if you've got questions, you need to probably get this book. But most importantly, if you feel like, whew, if you feel pressured in any kind of way to do things you don't want to do, seek help.
I says here on page 174, it says, strive to become that which I was not in my early years in Jehovah's organization, and which JT and Lady C stresses constantly. Become a critical thinker. Examine and evaluate everything you are told and taught, and take nothing for granted or verbatim. not even what you read here within my journal. Take a virtual tour back in time. Go back to Eden and examine that tree of knowledge. It's still there, but it has a band around its stump, being censored, this time by the political leaders, secret societies, and the church, which are strange bedfellows. But take a sharp knife with you for cutting those damnable bonds to shred and release that precious but once forbidden fruit. Yes, that knowledge that was find that tree that was hidden and censored from the beginning of time, even down to our day, because there were the great and almighty God, the creator that exists above Jehovah, left enough crumbs on the road for us to find our way home
Yes.
to him, to it,
Yes.
because it has no gender.
I agree.
It's an all expansive God of this universe to create this whole entire universe. Jehovah didn't create any of this. He eked out of space within the solar system, a small space for himself and his demon angels. But he did not create this universe. That God is the one we pray to. That God is the one, in fact, if you read the book of Thomas, which was left out of the Bible, Jesus let you know Jehovah was not his father. So people say, well, Jehovah sacrificed his son on the cross. No, he wanted Jesus dead. That's what Jehovah wanted. He did not, but he would not come. He didn't want to come out smelling like a, he wanted to come out smelling like a rose. So he couldn't say, yeah, the reason I had Jesus hung up on a cross, or whatever you call it, Jehovah's Witnesses call it a stake, they don't call it a cross. But the reason why Jehovah wanted Jesus on the cross was not because he was dying for humanity. It was because Jesus was telling the truth. He said that one was a manslayer from the beginning, and he did not stand fast in the truth. He was about death. Jesus was about life. And so it's an amazing story when you get to know the real truth, because see, churches really don't go back into ancient history. We're going all the way back to the land of Sumer, when
Mm-hmm.
these gods at one time walked the earth in the flesh. But then, because of the flood and everything else that happened, they went back to heaven. Because I used to ask the question, well, if Jehovah brought the flood to clean the earth of what he called wicked spirit forces, how did they escape and go back to the spirit realm and only humans died and the animals? But it's because that was not the idea. He wanted Jesus dead because Jesus taught the others. When Moses and those people in the wilderness were hungry, Jehovah sent snakes to bite them. And that's why Jesus said, if somebody asks for a loaf of bread and they're hungry, he said, will you give them a snake, a serpent? So he was referring to what Jehovah did. And he would constantly let people know that Jehovah was not his father. His father was the grand creator of this universe, the one he said, Father, you prepared a body for me so that I can go into the world and see what it's like to live as a human. But he wanted to get back to his father, back to that kingdom. And that's why he and Judas made that plot to betray him so that he could go back to his father.
Wow. 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 Hadassah, thank you so much for being on the show. I truly appreciate it. It has been nothing but eye opening. I'm telling you. I mean, I knew a lot, but I definitely didn't know this. Yeah.
Most people don't, because you will not hear this in the church. You will not hear this in the schools. You will not hear, because there's a reason why so many books were. When I started my research almost like 10 years ago,
Mhm.
I found out, because when I was going through the Dead Sea Scrolls, I just prayed first of all to for the universal sovereign point me in the direction of what I need to read or and it seemed like when I was in the library, books just started falling off the shelf. Certain books that I never would have searched for myself. And when I realized after reading the Dead Sea Scrolls and going to the library, some of the books that were in the library of Alexander, which they destroyed, and I come to find out through the Nag Hammadi Codex that there were at least between 84 and 94 books of the Bible. But yet our Bible only has 66. So what did they take out that they didn't want us to know? People ask the question, well, where did Cain get his wife? If there was only Adam, Eve, Cain, and Abel, all of a sudden Cain gets sent out to the land of Nod, and all of a sudden he comes back with a wife and a family. Where'd they come from?
Mm-hmm.
Because there were people living there in that land of Nod.
Yeah.
People were over there. And it was from those people that he got his wife and his
Yeah.
family.
Yeah.
So there's so much we don't know because certain Bibles, they wanted to present a certain narrative. And so for that and they left out whatever books did not agree with the narrative they wanted people to read. And when people say, well, all I have to do is stick to my Bible and I'm good, that's what they want because they don't want you to go outside that. Knowledge has always been suppressed all the way down through time. And that's why he didn't want them to go to eat off that tree of knowledge. People say, well, what was an apple? It was not a literal fruit. And religion teaches us to look at the Bible as literal. Even the fire of revelation was not literal.
Stop it, girl. Just stop it. Oh goodness, you got me. We could be here all night. This is again, most people don't understand. This is not that you don't believe, it's that you believe even more intently and deeper
Absolutely.
than the
And I
norm.
have such a relationship now with the universal sovereign that I've never had with this Jehovah because for some reason his ogreness, his hatred, his evil, his killing people, his you should have no other gods before me. I thought you said there are no other gods besides you, but there were.
I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Let me shut up. Ooh. I said that and I got attacked.
Yeah, you will get attacked
I
because
got
people got a
attacked.
certain frame of what they've been taught. And it's like I say in the book, if you get angry over things that I've said in here, know that it's not laid to your fault because you're only going according to what's been programmed in your psyche to believe. And so
Exactly.
when the truth hits up against that long held indoctrination, you're going to get angry. One thing I say in the front of the book I wrote, all truth passes through three stages. First, it is ridiculed. Second, it is violently opposed. Third, it is accepted as being self-evident. And that was said by Arthur Schopenhauer. So, and that's the way it is, unfortunately. Truth has never been popular.
No. No. Wow. Hadassah, I am telling you, girlfriend, you have really just I mean, I have to say the testimony of your strength, of your journey, of where you are today, it brings me even more to the realization that I am even closer than what I was back in the day. I'm an ordained pastor.
Oh, wow.
Go figure. And I had questions like, why is this like this? And why? And they revoked my license.
And those were all the questions I asked myself because I
Yeah,
couldn't understand it. And this God of the universal sovereign is so different. I mean, so loving, so every morning I get up, I have to sing praises to this entity, this universal sovereign.
yeah, yeah. You know, Hadassah, thank you so much for being on the show. You really, really have helped me to understand that I am on the right path, that I am understanding that there is a creator that loves.
Yes, it's pure love.
Yeah,
It's pure
yeah,
love.
it's
And
pure
like I
love.
said, when if you Google the book of Thomas, you'll hear Jesus himself explain who his father is,
Hmm.
and it's a beautiful. It's something beautiful you
Mm.
can't imagine.
Wow. Well, thank you, Hadassah, for being on the show. I truly appreciate it. You guys, I have put the book up there, and there is a QR code in the corner. We also have already placed the book in the bookstore. It's on the Yaya Diamonds book club on Amazon Fire. You can go ahead and get that as well. Just go ahead and go to the link there, or I will put the link in the description box below. And I want to thank you guys so much for tuning in. Man, I mean, I understand that some people are going to put down that we, hey, that's not truth and whatever, what have you. But you got to understand, and I tell people this, everyone's journey is different.
Yes,
Everyone's journey is different, and there's no criticism on where you are, and where you'll end up is where you're supposed to be. And
I
you
promise.
know, mhm,
I promise the universal sovereign and deep in my spirit that if it would help me get free from that psychiatric center, I would spend the rest of my life searching for truth to understand it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I have done.
Yeah. Yeah. And I totally agree with you. You know, when I stopped letting myself be programmed, there are just some uh things that I would have to say that happened to me that proves that I'm on the right track now.
Yes.
Definitely on the right track now. And I want to thank you so much, Hadassah, for coming out and letting us know about this book. Will the real Satan please stand up?
Yes. And you'll see when you get your book, in the front of the book, I have oil paintings that I painted, and
Oh,
it'll show you
nice.
who our mother goddesses and the ones who created us are these three entities, especially this one. This is the guy that went down in history as Satan the devil, but he is our actual
Can you
creator.
raise that up a little bit so
Uh,
we can see it?
oh,
There you go. Oh, wow.
that's Inky. That's Jehovah's older brother.
Hmm.
He's the one who created us, not Jehovah, not the God of the Bible. This is the God that created us, along with the universal sovereign. And
Wow.
people don't realize that when they worship Jehovah, the God of the Hebrew scriptures, they're actually worshiping the real Satan.
Wow. Wow. That just makes it. Ooh. Okay. I'm just gonna leave that there. I want to thank you so much for being on the show, Hadassah. Thank you.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. And I
That was
really
so
enjoyed
lovely.
you.
I enjoyed it too, man. I'm telling you, and you've spoken to me. You've imparted in me understanding that I do truly feel free. Like it doesn't bother me that other people have whatever they believe. I'm not zealous over that. I'm not angry over that.
Mhm.
It doesn't it doesn't keep me captive anymore
Right.
like it used to.
And that's good because we're entering a time now. You remember when Jesus said, I'll be with you till the end of the age?
Hmm.
We are at the end of his age now, the age of Pisces.
Right.
We're entering now, we're on the cusp now of the age of Aquarius. And what
Yes.
the churches teach, we're at the end of the world. No, this world is not going anywhere. We're not at the end of the world. We're making a transition from Jesus's age of Pisces. That's why he was represented by the two fish, which stood for him and Mary Magdalene, which he later married. But you'll never read that in the Bible. That he married Mary Magdalene, they had two children, and that after they married, Jesus traveled through India and Afghanistan for quite some time. So we we're ending his age now, and we're going into the age of Aquarius, and that things are going to be a lot better because Jehovah's going to be gone, and we'll have a better time.
You know, I have been studying that, girlfriend. I have been studying that, okay? The India, all the writings.
Yes,
There are thousands upon thousands of writings
because in the
where he
Bible,
lived there.
Jesus at the end, I mean, at the age of 12, and then they cut it off. What was the rest of his life? He didn't die on the cross. He traveled to India.
From what I understand, he didn't die. They brought him down and they took him to
But
India.
when you read the book of Thomas, he says it wasn't me that went to the cross. He said, I was watching them from above. He said they had their man on the cross, pretending it to be me. Read, that's why they couldn't let the book of Thomas in the Bible. He said, that was
Yo,
not me on that cross.
oh my gosh. Okay, so everybody, please. Okay, so you got to get the real Satan. Please stand up,
Yes.
and also go ahead and please don't judge. You know, study,
Study,
study, just
study,
study, just study. Everybody's going
study.
to get a different interpretation. They're going to get a different meaning. You're going to get a different piece of the Creator.
Yes,
Okay, because no one's the same. That's what makes us uniquely different.
right.
However, what I'm trying to say is study, just study, just study.
Thank you, Yaya,
Hadasha,
so
thank
much
you
for
so much,
having me.
girlfriend. Girl, you didn't open up the can of worms
And
and
I just want to say, my two friends here, this could not be possible without them. I don't know anything about electronics. So Nicole and Charles,
thank you, Nicole.
they
Thank you,
saved me
Charles.
today.
They did, and you
Yeah,
sound and look amazing. Thank you so
thank
much,
you,
guys.
thank you.
Nicole and Charles, thank you so much. Hadasa, thank you. And
You're
thank
welcome.
you guys so much for tuning in. Go get that book. Y'all, I'm telling you, please in the comment section, I'm going to leave it there because everybody has their thing that they have to say. And
Mhm.
we're not negating the fact that there is a creator. But what we're
Right.
saying is please study, please look
Yes.
into it. Don't let anyone feed you negativity or anything like that. Find out for yourself. If
Absolutely.
you believe in whatever it is, I'm fine with it. It doesn't bother me anymore. I don't know. I kind of got released from that. It was really miraculous where I used to be upset that they weren't Christian or they weren't this or they
Mhm.
weren't that. But now it's like, okay, you're on your own journey. That's good.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And so there you go. So, but study, definitely study. Thank you
That
guys.
that's it. Study.
Yeah, study. Thank you
Thank you.
guys so much. Thank you so much. Hadassah, you're beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you. And
Thank
so
you.
are you.
Thank you. And you guys have a wonderful day. And
You
don't
too.
forget to dare to be different. Until next time, guys. Until next time, Hadassah.